Atlas Fallen. High-speed desert surfing combined with momentum-based aerial combat creates an incredible sense of scale. The $9.99 sale price turns a massive, visually stunning sandbox into a very easy decision. The combat hinges on a momentum gauge that makes your weapons larger and deadlier as you fight, but also increases the damage you take, creating a fantastic risk-reward loop. The side quests occasionally feel like standard open-world filler, but the pure kinetic joy of gliding across dunes and engaging in co-op monster fights provides tremendous entertainment value.
Code Vein. Grabbing an action RPG with this much visual flair at a 90% discount feels genuinely criminal. Sure, the level design occasionally gets a bit repetitive, but the blood code system completely breaks the traditional class rules. Swapping your entire build on the fly based on which boss is currently beating you down keeps the combat incredibly fresh. The AI companions are actually competent enough to carry you through tough spots, which is rare for the genre. Seeing the price tag drop down to $7.99 for a solid 30 hours of aggressive, flashy combat is exactly the kind of deal you load up a Steam cart for. One Piece Odyssey. Anime games usually carry a premium price tag forever, which makes catching a 75% discount incredibly tempting. What catches most players off guard is how well this functions as a massive, standalone turn-based RPG. The combat uses an unusual positioning system where crew members are scattered across different zones, forcing you to think spatially rather than just spamming your strongest attacks. There is a slight learning curve with the menus, but for $9.99, getting to spend 50 hours wandering through gorgeously rendered memories with an overpowered pirate crew is basically robbing Bandai Namco. Ni no Kuni: Wrath of the White Witch Remastered. Paying $7.49 for an RPG that looks and feels like a playable Studio Ghibli film is an absolute steal. The core loop revolves around catching and evolving familiars, scratching that specific monster-taming itch while wrapping it in a genuinely emotional narrative. Your AI party members can be aggressively stupid sometimes, blowing through their mana pools in random encounters, but micromanaging them becomes part of the charm. Sinking 80 hours into a world this beautiful at an 85% discount is the definition of stretching your gaming budget to its absolute limit. Tales of Iron. Brutal, unforgiving combat starring a heavily armored Rat King shouldn't work this well. For a ridiculous $2.99, you get an incredibly dense, weighty combat system that demands perfect parries and calculated dodges. The atmosphere is grim, the world is punishing, and every weapon swing feels like it has actual physical weight behind it. Earning your throne back from giant amphibians is packed with tense, sweaty palm moments where one missed block means instant death. Getting this much tension and mechanical polish for less than the cost of a terrible cup of coffee is just absurd value. Achilles: Legends Untold. Finding a solid top-down action RPG that entirely focuses on Greek mythology and stamina-based combat is rare. Dropping the price to $7.49 makes experimenting with its unusual Gaia AI system a no-brainer. Enemies actually coordinate their attacks, flank your position, and use each other as vaulting boards to close the distance, which turns basic encounters into deadly puzzles. The targeting lock-on can feel a bit sticky during massive brawls, but the sheer satisfaction of bouncing a shield off 3 heavily armored Spartans before executing a perfect dodge easily justifies throwing a few dollars at it. Valkyria Chronicles. A $4.99 price tag on one of the most mechanically unique strategy games ever made is hard to ignore. Blending turn-based tactical planning with real-time third-person shooting creates a constant state of paranoia. Taking command of a sniper, manually aiming for a headshot, and praying the RNG favors your crosshairs never loses its tension. Permadeath is a constant threat, meaning a single misjudged tank maneuver can permanently erase your favorite squad member. Grabbing 40 hours of intense, watercolor-painted military strategy for pocket change is why we wait for these sales. Dragon Ball XENOVERSE.
Customizing your own time-traveling Saiyan and fixing broken moments in anime history is a fantastic power fantasy. For $6.49, throwing down in massive 3D arenas while unlocking a frankly ridiculous amount of skills and outfits provides a very specific kind of dopamine loop. The hub world mechanics show their age a bit, but the raw thrill of finally dropping a perfect Kamehameha after grinding parallel quests is incredibly satisfying. It packs enough progression and unlockables to keep a player busy for weeks, making that 90% price cut highly attractive. Darkest Dungeon. At $3.74, you are essentially paying to traumatize yourself, and you'll love every agonizing second of it. The brilliance sits entirely in the stress mechanic. Your heroes aren't just taking physical damage, they are losing their minds in real time, becoming selfish, paranoid, or violently abusive to their teammates when the darkness creeps in. You will absolutely lose high-level characters to awful RNG, and the game explicitly tells you that failure is part of the process. Handing over less than $4 for a game that will completely consume your waking thoughts is a terrifyingly good deal. Monster Hunter Stories. Taking the punishing grind of Monster Hunter and twisting it into a breezy, egg-stealing turn-based RPG is brilliant. Snagging it for $9.89 nets you a surprisingly deep genetic splicing system where you can build heavily customized monsters with entirely unnatural elemental attacks. Want a fire-breathing Lagambi? You absolutely can breed one. The combat relies on a rock-paper-scissors attack triangle that seems simple until boss monsters start aggressively faking out their patterns. It offers massive replayability for players who obsess over min-maxing stats, easily justifying its sale price. Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth Complete Edition. 2 massive 50-hour JRPGs packed into a single $4.99 purchase is almost comical. The sheer density of the Digivolution system is the reason people lose sleep playing this. You constantly de-evolve and re-evolve your party to inherit specific skills across completely different evolutionary lines, turning team building into an incredibly addictive spreadsheet simulation. The unskippable dialogue sequences can drag heavily in the early hours, but once the progression systems open up, the hours per dollar ratio here is one of the best on the entire platform. God Eater 2 Rage Burst. Grabbing a high-speed, anime-styled monster hunting game at a massive 90% discount makes perfect sense for fans of aggressive combat. At $5.99, you get a sprawling narrative and weapons that literally bite chunks out of massive beasts to power up your own abilities. The combat emphasizes speed and aerial mobility over slow, methodical tracking. Some of the environments feel a little boxed in due to the game's portable origins, but the sheer volume of craftable gear and blood art modifiers easily provides 80 hours of engaging grind. Torchlight II. This is pure, unfiltered action RPG dopamine refined down to a $3.99 purchase. The core loop of clicking on monsters until they explode into color-coded loot never gets old. What keeps players installing this years later is the offline playability and the absolutely massive Steam Workshop integration. You can overhaul the entire experience with custom classes, new acts, and insane difficulty mods the second you finish the vanilla campaign. Securing endless, chaotic loot farming for the price of a cheap energy drink is a remarkably safe bet for your wallet. Symphony of War, the Nephilim Saga, a tactical RPG that successfully merges Fire Emblem's grid movement with Ogre Battle's auto combat is rare enough, but finding it for $7.99 is fantastic. You aren't just moving single units, you're building entire battalions, mixing paladins with archers and mages to create specific tactical advantages. Tweaking your squad formations before a massive siege becomes highly addictive. The story leans heavily into standard fantasy tropes, but the deep, highly customizable army management makes this an essential purchase for anyone who loves spending hours staring at stat sheets. Battle Brothers. Paying $8.99 to manage a company of doomed mercenaries in a procedurally generated meat grinder is a unique kind of punishment. Your men don't just take damage, they lose eyes, suffer permanent brain damage, and get their noses sliced off, affecting their stats forever. The strategic layer forces you to worry about payroll, food supplies, and repairing broken armor while navigating a dynamic world full of warring noble houses. The learning curve is absolutely brutal, but the stories you generate from a single disastrous ambush make this worth every penny.